Hello everyone, and welcome to day number 120 of your daily Chafetz Chaim. Today we continue with the cases section at the end of the Sefer Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim writes in halacha number 4. If you see that somebody wants to make a shidduch, a marriage proposal, with someone else, and you know that one of the two people who are involved has a very significant problem about which the other doesn't know, and if they would know about it, then you know that they would call it off immediately. So what exactly is considered a very significant problem will be discussed later, but the halacha is in this case that you would be required to share that information with the other side so that they should be aware of what they are getting themselves involved in. However, the Chafetz Chaim says it is very important that you pay attention to all of the details that are necessary for this to be permissible, and you should also be very careful not to compare one thing to another, but just to work with exactly what we know. And yet, the Chafetz Chaim says before we go into the details of all of these different criteria that you need to have fulfilled in order for this to be permissible, we first have to deal with some things that are actually very basic and very understandable and really shouldn't have to be even written here. Nevertheless, the Chafetz Chaim says that there are unfortunately people who do make these mistakes even in these simple matters, and therefore the Chafetz Chaim says we will go through them, and hopefully with this Hashem will help that we will mitigate some of the problem. And the Chafetz Chaim says in halacha number 5, it is very important to avoid the bad habit or midah of those who are constantly looking down upon others, and they will say negative things about one side to the other side, even for something that really isn't true. For example, if, let's say, the prospective chassan, the groom, is a very wholesome person, he's not somebody who is street smart, as we'll call it, and he won't necessarily notice if people are trying to take advantage of him or trying to trick him or things like that, and you'll have a group of people who will immediately label him and give him a reputation of being a very dim-witted, very shallow, not smart person. And this can unfortunately be the cause of this person not to have a shidduch, or even potentially to break up a shidduch that was already in process. And Hashem, the Chafetz Chaim says, should cut out the tongues of those who speak this way and cause such terrible things. Because not only are they guilty of speaking Lashon Hara because of this, and they are called the Ba'alei Lashon Hara, the speakers of Lashon Hara, because there isn't even a single one of the necessary conditions that will be fulfilled here. But it's even worse because these are Matzei Shem Ra, because this is not even true. What they're calling this person is inaccurate, and therefore even if they had all the other conditions fulfilled, it still wouldn't be allowed, and it is worse than regular Lashon Hara, and even if it were to be true, still, because the conditions have not been fulfilled, this would not be allowed anyway. And in truth, the Chafetz Chaim says, these people are also considered to be those who cause the public to sin, because, the Chafetz Chaim explains, due to their nature of constantly speaking negatively of others, they will often cause other good and normal people to also fall into this category of becoming people who speak this way about others, initially because they are trying to protect themselves, because they know that if they don't join in with these kinds of conversations, then they will be on the receiving end of it very soon. And eventually, even good people will end up becoming naturals in this terrible habit just because of having to do it over and over again. It will start becoming their nature, as our sages teach us. And therefore the Chafetz Chaim says how important it is that we need to strengthen ourselves not to get involved with these people. Now, this doesn't mean to fight with them, but it just means that we should stay away from them and not get involved with them at all, and do not lend them our hand. As the verse states, Im yamru lecha itanu, if they say to you, go with us, menaraglecha minisivasam, keep your feet from going in their ways, ki ragleim l'ra yerutzu, because their feet are running to do evil. And our sages say in the Mishnah in Idios that it is better that a person should be called a fool his entire life rather than to be called a sinner even for a moment before Hashem. And the Chafetz Chaim notes that being called a fool isn't necessarily specific, but even to do something that is actually foolish is also better than to become a sinner before Hashem. And we find this from the episode of David HaMelech, King David, when he was captured by the king Avimelech, that he acted like a mentally deranged person in order to get off the hook, and that they couldn't accuse him of being this great leader. And if this is true of trying to save oneself from a king of flesh and blood, how much more so do we need to even do foolish things if necessary to avoid becoming sinners before Hashem, the King of all kings? And the Chofetz Chaim continues, we find that the Talmud tells us about the verse, Adam uvehema teshia Hashem, that man and animal are saved by Hashem. The Talmud teaches us that this refers to the people who are like animals, meaning to say that they are people in the sense that they are very smart and upstanding and good people, and they also act like animals, meaning that they're very humble and they act in very shallow and simple ways because of their humility. And this is a great praise on their behalf. And the Chofetz Chaim brings a final Gemara, which is in the Tractate of Brachos, which says that if a person under certain circumstances finds kalayim, shatnez, a forbidden mixture of wool and linen in their clothing, then they will actually need to take it off, even though this could be embarrassing. Nevertheless, the Talmud tells us it is always better to do something which is even embarrassing in this world rather than to sin before Hashem. And the Chofetz Chaim ends off by saying that to go and tell something to the other side in regards to a shidduch about something that the other person's family or ancestors or parents had done, that is certainly going to be lashon hara as well, because that is not relevant to the person that is being discussed.